Welcome everybody to today's webinar about working with files. Today we will speak about how to upload, sync, reuse and create files, all within Langdock. So why do files even matter? Files bring a lot of context while working with AI. And the great part is they bring a lot of context all at once. Without this additional context, LLMs usually default to like a very average answer. They don't have any knowledge about your files you use at work, about your company knowledge. And that's good. We don't want them to have that, right? But when you work with LLMs, it's important to give them as much context about your work as possible. And files are one of the easiest way to give them that context, that extra information, examples, and also you can even provide templates. In Langdock, there are many ways to work with files. And today, we want to go through many of those. Before we start, a couple of points. So my name is Dennis. I'm from the account management team here at Langdock. Today, I will be sharing all of the features we have currently available in the cloud. So some of you might have Langdock open on the side and want to check out if they can also do what I'm sharing here. And it might be possible that you can't. And there's two reasons for them. First of all, some features need to be enabled by an admin on your side. And sometimes it just takes a bit of time and some processes need to happen within your company until these features also release for you. Many of you today are also working on a dedicated deployment. Here, these features are yet to come, some of them, to your instance in the next couple of weeks. We are quite a large round today, so feel free to ask questions in the chat, in the Q&A section. My colleagues are waiting there for you and we'll answer them as we go. Let's jump into it. So before we go really into the demo, we need to think about some concepts first. The first is now versus reuse. So sometimes you need a file just now, just for one time, in one chat. So these files, which you just use once briefly for a quick task, they also follow your data retention policy. Every company, every workspace has a different data retention policy set up. They range between 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, a year, also forever. But it's an important distinction. These files will be deleted together with the chat. So they are temporary files. On the other side, sometimes you might want to reuse a file or a set of files again and again and again. You might want to also share some of these files. These files, they stay until you decide to delete them. Another topic which is quite important before we start is the ways of getting files into Langdock. On one hand, you can upload a copy. So for example, from your device, from your machine, from your local machine. Or you can pick it from a connected app like SharePoint. This is a copy, so it has no relation to the original document. If you delete it in Langdock, it will remain on your local machine. But you can also sync files or folders directly to Langdock. And that's a really great feature. Because what happens is that when you, for example, sync a SharePoint folder, that when something changes in that folder, it will automatically also change in Langdock. And that is really helpful to keep files fresh and really up to date from a different system. So we have a distinction between files we just need temporarily and files we need for a longer time. And then we also have a distinction between uploading a file for like a one-time use or syncing a file where it permanently is connected to its original source. Now, let's jump into all of the different ways how you can add files and work with files in Langdock. The library is a feature we released a couple of weeks ago. And this is like your file home. In the top, you can create new files, you can add templates, and make just new files from scratch. This is Create New File section. In the middle, you have the folders. Here is everything which is about reusing and saving files and sharing them with your colleagues, either in folders or in knowledge bases. More about that later. And finally, at the bottom, you have your recent files. These are, remember, the one-time use files, the ones which get deleted based on your data retention policy. This recent files is really helpful because sometimes you maybe generated a good file and it's somewhere in your chat 3 weeks ago. You could go through all of your chats and find that file, or you go to recent files directly in the library and find the file there. So this is the library. We will go throughout the demo today. We will go back and forth and always see how the library is important for all of the topics we will discuss today. It's basically, as it says here, the home of all of your files. Now, let's start with the basics. Single chat, just a normal chat. So the files you upload to that chat are available in this chat only and only for you. You can share the chat and then also others can see the files, but generally speaking, this is a file which is only temporarily available in this chat. And there's many ways of adding a file to the chat, through drag and drop, through the plus button, or you can also pick a file from SharePoint or Google Drive. I'll show you in a second how that looks. So this is best used for files and conversations you need just once, and then never really want to reuse them again. Chats are not a great place to save files, because remember the data retention policy. So your admins have set up this date, and then based on the last message you sent, 30 days later, for example, the whole chat and all of the files in the chat will be deleted. There is also a limit to this. You can, in a chat with one message, you can upload up to 20 files at once. They can vary, text files, Excel files, they can also be video files and image files really. But it's up to 20. And the reason is here that you can imagine it as if we're loading all of the files directly into the context window. It's not quite like that, but it's important distinction because there needs to be a technical limit of how much the AI can handle at once. I will show you some ways around this. But before we do, let's jump into some examples. So we're here in our workshop space. And you know that there's many different ways of uploading a file. I'm sure you know some of them, but maybe there's also one you've never seen. You can click on the plus button and upload a file directly from your computer. Very simple. You can also just go ahead and drag and drop, like I'm doing here, and just drop it into the chat. And there you have it. The file is now part of the chat. If you have SharePoint or Google Drive connected, there's a really cool feature where you can click on the plus button and select a file directly from SharePoint, for example. You can just search for it. For example, I will search for this Northwind document. And it will look through SharePoint to find the document and attach it directly. While this is searching, I will also give you an alternative to this, which is really cool. What you can do if you have that file already in SharePoint, you can just copy the link to that file and paste it directly. Here now it found it, I can just click it, and now it's as if you went to SharePoint, downloaded the file and uploaded it here. It's a copy, it's not synced, this is just a copy. So now the file is also here. And the final point I want to share you is what I just mentioned. I have the file here, I can click on the 3 dots and copy the link. And then all I do in Langdock is I just paste the link, wait for a couple of seconds, and I think this is really cool. The file is there. I didn't do anything. I just pasted the link. And now I can start chatting with that file. For example, here we have a RFP from Northwind, who's a wholesaler for coffee, and we at Reno are a coffee company. So I can just say, summarize what Northwind is asking suppliers for in 5 bullets. And now the AI will go, read directly this PDF, and give me a nice answer. This is obviously very clear and nothing new for you. So now imagine in the next step, you want to really start working on that request for proposal after you understood roughly what Northwind market needs, but you don't want to do this alone. And you also know that you're going to create a bunch of documents for this. This is where working with folders comes in. This is a brand new feature we just released 6 days ago. So again, for our users here on the dedicated deployment Langdock environments, you will have to wait a little bit until it comes also to you. So what are working in folders? It's a very, very cool and very important feature. It's one place to organize and share files with your colleagues. You can upload several files, up to 100, and use them across chats, agents, and projects. And the best part about this is that you can not just view them, but you can also edit and add files directly while you work in a chat. So this is best used for when you're reusing like the same set of files across the platform. You also need to edit them on the fly. And it's like for example, working on a complex proposal with multiple documents and multiple team members. So first of all, we go to the library and we need to create that folder, right? Here we have some of the gray folders. These are knowledge bases. We will get to them in a second. But you need to create one of the new folders, the blue folders. And when you click on the drop down here, you also have the option to create a folder or a knowledge base. Again, more about this in a second. If you just click on the folder, on create folder, it will create a folder. We can call it Northwind RFP. Now we have an empty folder. Great. And I can also share this folder now with either the whole workspace or just with a couple of my colleagues like Tahir here. He now also will then have access to this folder and all of the documents within that folder. Again, really great for collaboration. When you then want to use that folder, you're here, let's say in a new chat, you then have this new option here, work in a folder. And that's exactly where you go in and you choose the folder you want to work in. Now, anytime you use the chat while having that folder activated, any document you upload, create, or edit will always be referred to in this folder. So it's really helpful. You can just like create a new chat, pull in that folder, and you have all of the context there right away. Let's start exactly how we started before. So I will pull in my RFP again. I will ask the same question to summarize the 5 bullet points just to get started. So now I'm working, you see down here also that I'm working in that folder. It answers again the questions, but now I really need to get going, right? I have this Northwind brief and I want to start our response, right? So I need some drafts. I need a cover note, I need a proposed data range, and I need a requirements response outline, right? Some of the things which are being asked here in this response, in this RFP. So here I have a long prompt, right? It says like, start our response, create each of these as a separate document. Right now, if I click, there's no files yet, right? So there's no files yet. But when I now go and, let it run, it will now start creating these documents. And also, whenever it will start creating these documents, as I mentioned, it will create these documents directly in the folder which you have chosen. So we'll give it a moment here until it starts creating. By the way, what you will also see, we'll have maybe some time later to jump in a little bit deeper into this topic in a second, is you can see that it will create documents here on the right using the document creator. This is also pretty new and it replaces Canvas. So it created the documents, 3 of those. We can look into them. Yeah? We can have a preview here. And then if we view the files, you see they are now here in that folder. And that is really cool because I can now just, somewhere else, start a new chat, click on that Northwind RFP file folder and directly start chatting with this. If a colleague of mine does this, he will also, or she will have these folders available, these files available in that folder. And if you go to the library, I can also see, if I click on that folder, my files are here. The best part about this is, but not that the files are just available, it's also that you can actually edit them, right? Directly on the fly. I don't need to recreate the whole file. I can just edit directly the file. So for example, in the cover note here, in the opening, this is, I think, a bit of a long sentence to start the cover note. So here I have a little prompt prepared, which just tightens it. And I wanted also to, mention that we are EU organic and fair trade. So when I do this, it will go and not create a completely new cover note. It will actually, as you see here, edit the cover note directly. And you see EU organic and fair trade. And also I can further just delete a word here. And whenever I do that, it will be saved in that file and therefore also in that folder. What is also really great, I have versions. Right? So if you share that folder with a colleague and they are working with it and they're creating new files, editing your files, sometimes maybe they change something you didn't want them to change. No problem. You can always roll back and go back to the original version of the file you created, for example. Then you can save it to SharePoint, in OneDrive, Google Drive. You can download it or copy the text. Now, Some of you who've been using Langdock for a while know that we had something called knowledge folders. Now we call them knowledge base. So knowledge bases work a bit differently. Knowledge bases are there for large collection of files. Hundreds, up to 1,000 files per knowledge base, and you can have many of those. A very important distinction to the folders is that knowledge bases are read-only. That means you cannot edit them on the fly. You can add text files up to 1,000 and then refer to them wherever you are, in an agent or in a chat, for example. This is really great if you have like a lot of PDFs which are a bit maybe more static or text files and you want just to create like a company knowledge base, for example, directly in Langdock. When you use a knowledge base, it creates a vector database. This is for the power users here. This is why the AI can search across them really, really efficiently and very quickly. Again, everything starts from the library. We're going to the home where all the files live. In order to create a knowledge base, I click here on the little arrow here, and instead of creating a folder, again for collaboration, I can create here a read-only knowledge base. Because this takes some time to upload all of the files, I already did this beforehand. Here I uploaded over 100 files about like our company knowledge base. There is like a matrix about all of our allergens for our coffees products. There is an FAQ of how to do reordering. There is a certification about our EU certification if we are organic or not. So by the way, there's more down here. And you can then like see a lot of these files. Important, you can only upload text files here. Also now PDFs with images if there's text on them, right? So if you just upload a PDF or an image with no text on it, it won't work because a vector database only works with text. Also, tables will not work. So it's really about text files. So imagine here we have over 100 files. And if you would like try to upload them all at once somewhere in Langdock, it wouldn't first not work, and second, it would be just too much to manage. But in a knowledge base, it works very efficiently because of this other technology. So for example, I have a question here. What's our wholesale minimum order and lead time for the cold brew line? Very specific question. If I would ask this now, the LLM wouldn't know, right? It has no idea. But I can just, via the tag button, add, I can just tag a knowledge base here. There's some others. I want to tag the company knowledge base. So now it will look very efficiently, very fast through all of these hundreds of files and give me a very, very specific response, as you see here. And the great part of this is, and that's also important, you can easily confirm that this information is true. You see these little apostrophes here, and if you click it, you will see a preview or a download of that specific section where you can see that information. So this is what knowledge bases are for. Just because maybe this is a bit confusing, just a quick recap. So folders are for active work, for something where you want to store, share, and edit files. It's like a living folder. You're always constantly kind of editing something. Together with Langdock, you can like read, edit, and create files alongside your work. Knowledge bases, on the other hand, are a bit more static. Of course, you can delete a file or upload a file, but they're more read-only. They're for search. They're for like your knowledge. And they're super reusable company knowledge, specifically made for chats and agents. Now, let's take it up another notch. We also have projects in Langdock. Projects in Langdock are like a workspace for a specific topic. You can add instructions for this topic. You can add context, knowledge, so files, and also skills. We won't speak about skills today, but it's important to understand that like this new how we call it now, context, it can be, again, uploaded files, but also existing folders, or you can also sync files. So far, everything was created on the fly or uploaded. Now, for the first time today, we will dive deeper into what syncing files means. Syncing keeps the source's permissions. I will repeat this multiple times throughout the next couple of minutes. It's very important. The core concept is that if you sync a file from SharePoint, for example, somebody else who tries to use the project or the agent later on only has access to that file if they also have access to that file in SharePoint. And that is really, really great, because that makes it super safe to share information, because you can just sync a file or a folder. And whenever you share the project, you don't have to think, are these people allowed to see these files? Because you sync them with SharePoint. So either they can see them already in SharePoint, then it's all fine, or maybe they don't have the permission to see these files in SharePoint. Then also they will not be able to see them in Langdock. This is called pass-through permissions and will follow us over the next 10 minutes. Synced files also cannot be edited. Of course, the file lives in SharePoint. It's an Excel file, it's a Word file, it's a PowerPoint. And this is something which is, if you want to edit it, you have to do it there. I will have a little teaser for you how you can do that very well towards the end. If you actually want to edit the file in Langdock on the fly, then don't sync the files, use a library folder, again, for active work. So when should you use a project? So a project is you can add a folder with some files, and a project gives more context. So it's really about something very specific. There's also some limits as well. So direct upload, again 20, that's our general limit. But you can also sync up to 5 folders, and each folder can contain up to 200 files in the cloud. And for our dedicated customers, it's up to 1,000 files. So in theory, you can add 5,000 documents to a project or an agent. So we have a project here. It's again about the proposal. So I invited some of my colleagues and we all worked together on that proposal. In my instructions, I explained that I want to work on that specific proposal. And now I need to add my knowledge, the context, right? Because as you remember from the beginning, the more context you give to an AI, the better it works. So again, we have different ways of doing this. I could, on one hand, just use the folder we added earlier and just have that through the project. And then the project controls the permissions. So everybody who has access to the project will also get access to that specific working folder. We already spoke about working in folders. So today I want to really show you now about syncing. So if you attach a file, you get these two options. Upload a file, that's something we can do again. Basically, let's upload the RFP, right? It doesn't live in SharePoint, I just received it, so we will just upload it directly. And you see, I can open it, I can look at it directly in Langdock. Now, also, what I need for this is our wholesale pricing list. And what I would do, I would go select file or folder, and then I would search for wholesale. And now it will look through my SharePoint folders and look for a specific Excel I know I have, and we can then sync that directly to Langdock. Oh, let's give it a second. SharePoint search a bit slow today. There you go. So we have a wholesale price list, and that document changes all the time. It lives in SharePoint, and the colleagues from another team are changing the prices all the time. So it would be really difficult to constantly, whenever it changes, download it and upload it to Langdock. So the simplest way is just to sync it. So you see now, this looks slightly different. It says synced 0 seconds ago. So you see the difference. This was never synced because this is just a copy. And also, again, it reminds you, permissions stay as they are. So if a colleague is accessing the project and doesn't have access to that wholesale price list in SharePoint, the Langdock will also not expose the information to them. The syncing happens once a day in the night, 2-3 a.m. or something. So that means if you have a change and it's not there yet, that's why you have to wait for a bit. If you really need to have that change urgently available in Langdock, you can also manually refresh the file and it will appear right away. So this is the difference. You can either upload files directly, then they're just copies and they will not update, or you can sync files and then they will be referred to exactly from the Excel in SharePoint. So what are some use cases? I can ask now what are the value of the first order across 30 stores. And it read the file and gave me those answers based on that specific Excel file. Or also I need the wholesale pricing table, right? And again, it reads the document and gives me the answers. So this is super useful. Every time I start a chat here, it has all of the instructions and also it has all of the context. And that's what projects are for. Next up, agents. So agents are one of the most powerful features we have at Langdock, and they're powerful chatbot experts for a specific use case. So with agents, you can build something, for example, like a sales assistant. And agents become extremely powerful if you give them knowledge. Because without knowledge or integrations, an agent is really like a really complex and large prompt. Really, really great. But the real power comes from giving it more knowledge and also more access to other tools, which we won't speak about today. So when you have a variety of sources, you have some PDFs, you have something in SharePoint, you want to connect a knowledge base, and you want to do all of this with a lot of custom instructions, maybe also some integrations, then this is the best time to use an agent. There's also some limits here, like they always are. So you can upload up to 20 files directly to an agent. You can have up to 5 knowledge bases directly here. You can sync up to 5 folders. And again, the folders, the file limits are 200 for cloud and 1,000 for dedicated deployments. So in order to find agents, you go to the agent overview page, and then here I have the Reno Sales Assistant. So I edit the agent. And so this is an assistant which helps me to kind of answer all of the questions I have around selling products at Reno. So very importantly, you can have great instructions here, and maybe some of you have built already great agents, but it is very crucial that you also let the agent know what to do with what kind of knowledge, right? So be very specific here. So for example, here, the Reno company knowledge should be used for durable facts that the buyer could have about Reno, right? So really map it to the specific sources you have, because then the agent will just give you better answers based on exactly the questions you're answering. For example, we will have here some about company knowledge, some sales enablement materials, and some key talking points. So if we go down here now, if I would ask any of these questions, give me 3 headline talking points, it would just give me very average responses. It wouldn't really know any of the context. Maybe it would even refuse to give me an answer and say, listen, I just don't know. I don't have that information. Because, as you see down here, we have not added any knowledge so far. So let's start adding some knowledge. Step 1, direct attachments. Anytime you use any of the features, you can just always drag and drop a PDF. I have here the key talking points for our sales team, and I'm just dropping them, and now they're part of that agent. And whenever the agent has a question around the key talking points, it can look here, because I explained here, it can look into that file. So you direct the agent towards the correct information every time. Now also, I want to sync that Excel again, because obviously it's important for me to have this wholesale price list always available to the agent, so it can answer questions also about prices. The setup here is the same as in a project. Syncs once a day. You can refresh the sync if you need to, and permissions stay as they are. Now, sometimes you don't want to just add 1 file or 2 files or 3 files. You maybe want to add dozens of files or whole folders of files, which you always want to keep up to date. I mentioned it earlier, now we'll show you how this looks. You can attach full folders to an agent or a project. We're typing the name again. I want to add the sales enablement. Like this, enablement. The sales, okay. Let's see if I can find a list. There you go. The sales enablement folder. So I will add it here. Now you have this pop-up. And whenever you do it for the first time, I recommend to really read through this pop-up. It's a very important one. So I will not get tired of repeating this. Permissions stay as they are. So if somebody has access to that folder in SharePoint, they will also have access to that information in Langdock when they use that agent. If they don't have access to that folder, they can still use the agent, but the agent kind of will be dumb. It won't have that knowledge. It will just say, well, I don't know. I don't have that information. And this is exactly how it's supposed to be. So whenever you have a bit like more sensitive files, you can put them in a SharePoint folder, ensure that only the people you want to have access to this folder. And when you sync it to the agent, you make sure that no matter how the agent is shared with somebody, only the people who have access to the SharePoint folder can actually get this information. Files will be synced once a day. You already know this. Maximum 200 files. Again, if you're on a dedicated deployment, this will say maximum 1,000 files. And spreadsheets are not supported. They will just be ignored. So remember when I explained the knowledge base, I said that tabular data, Excel files, do not work there. This is because it's not really possible to create a vector database out of tabular data. We might change this in the future. So spreadsheets might be supported in the future. We will let you know when this is ready. And also, this might take a while, right? So this folder here doesn't have that many files. It has like, I don't know, 7 files. So this will go quite quickly. But if you upload a folder, if you're in a dedicated if you sync a folder and you're in a dedicated deployment with maybe up to 1,000 documents in the file, in the folder, this can obviously take up to an hour. So give it some time. And then it will update once a day during the night. So we can quickly look. Here's the sales enablement folder. I have some documents in here about objection handling, about competitor comparison, or a pitch script. And also here is the wholesale price list, which is also now synced directly in Langdock. There's one more thing I want to show you on this part, which is if you want to allow users to click and open the sources and the responses. Remember earlier I showed you that you can click on the little, apostrophes and see the specific file, right? You might want this so people can confirm that the information from the agent is correct, but you might also do not want this. So you might want to, for example, maybe you don't want that people can see the key talking points, right? That the agent should have that knowledge, but you don't want the people to see that specific PDF. So you have the choice that they can, they can't open it. So this is where you can directly upload files. This is where you can sync individual files. And this is also where you can sync whole folders. Now, folders in SharePoint or Google Drive. Now, so far we've talked about a lot about working in folders, so like the active folders and knowledge bases. And you might ask, how do I add them to an agent? You can. You add them via adding an action. You click here, and now here on the left, you have folders. And again, you see the gray ones are knowledge bases. For example, we can add the company knowledge base here. And the blue ones are the working in folders, the active work folders you work together with your colleagues. In this case, we won't add it. It doesn't really make sense because this is not just about this RFP, it's about general knowledge and general RFPs. So now we've added a file, we've shared a whole folder, and we synced Excel, and we added the whole company knowledge base. So now I can start asking questions like, a buyer needs allergen and caffeine details for oat milk. Remember in the company knowledge base, we had something about allergens. So now we can see how the agent goes into the information and finds it directly. Next, we can draft a reply to a buyer asking how Reno compares to other specialty coffee brands. Here, it will generate a draft, and it will do so based on the knowledge from that agent. I think it's based on the key talking points. Let's see. No, it's based on the competitor comparison, because in the sales enablement folder, we have this competitor comparison. So it refers directly to it. And the user might not even know that this folder exists or that there's information about this, but because you added it to the back end of that agent, now everybody using the agent can benefit from that great knowledge. Finally, the last question, give me 3 headline talking points and likely objections for a buyer meeting. right? So here, now we again let the agent answer, and now it refers to not the folder or the Excel or the knowledge base, but to the file you uploaded directly. So quick recap, if you want files to kind of continue to be synced with a different source, use syncing. If you just need to add 1 or 2 or up to 20 files directly to an agent and they don't need to live anywhere else, then you can just upload them directly to the knowledge. And if you want to add a whole folder, either a knowledge base or a folder, you do this via the actions. So this was a lot. Now let's recap everything. Here's a little cheat sheet. Maybe you can take like a screenshot of this. Also, by the way, everything we do here will be recorded and shared with you later. So if you want to use a file once, you can just upload a copy in the chat. If you want to reuse, share, and directly edit a set of files, then you should work in a folder. If you want to search text documents at scale, this is the best time to create a knowledge base, up to 1,000 files. If you want to work on a topic across multiple chats with multiple colleagues together, this is a great time to create a project, and you can also add a folder to it, so you have the best of both worlds. If you have a very specific use case, like a sales assistant, and you want to combine all types of different knowledge from different sources, this is a great place to use an agent. And finally, your home is the library. Here you can go to find, organize, and share your files. Something brand new, actually, which was just built very recently, is that you in the library now can also move files around. So I have this file here, for example, which I created, and actually I want this in my folder. I can just go and pull it in, and now it's also in the folder. And now it's not gonna get deleted after 30 days because you saved it in a folder. So you can move files around between here. And that's obviously also very helpful to manage your files across different, chats, projects, and folders. So this was everything about adding files to Langdock and how to add those. But also, obviously, you can just create files directly in Langdock. I already showed you the native document editor. Let's just take a very brief look at it again. So this cover note here, which we created earlier, obviously I can go in and just start using the AI to change something in the text. But sometimes it's just easier to change something directly in the text using the new document editor. If you use Canvas a lot in the past, you will feel right at home. It's basically a better version of Canvas. You can change any text. You see it in the version history. You can save it in SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Drive. You can download it directly as Markdown, a very efficient format to work with the AIs, or you can download it as Word or as a PDF. So this is a very powerful way to work together with colleagues on documents directly within Langdock. Many of you know, and we've done even also some webinars and other workshops on this in the past, you can also generate not just the documents in Langdock, but you can generate PowerPoint, Excel, Words, or PDF directly. So you can just tell the AI, hey, generate a PowerPoint, and it will do so. In order for it to really work the best, we suggest that you, or together with your admins, you add a slide master here. You can just click here, add a template, either a PowerPoint or a document or a doc. And after you've done this, it will open this screen here. What you do here is explain to the AI for each slide when it should be used. And that makes it much more powerful. Here, this is, we are just at the beginning of PowerPoint creation. It will get so much better over time. But what we suggest now already is keep it simple. Don't add 200 slide decks. Keep it quite simple with 10, 20 slides for now. Explain well here which slides should be used, which ones should be skipped. Especially like a nice starter set for a typical presentation is super helpful, because usually you just need a small presentation with a couple of slides. And then you can let the AI know which ones they should be. So this is how you can also create files directly in Langdock. Now, what's next? Today we spoke about working with files in Langdock. This week, we're launching the Excel add-in, which you can see here on the video. Now you can also use Langdock where you already work with your files. So you can use all of your integrations, agents, skills directly, for example, in Excel. soon we will also add plugins to Outlook, Word, and PowerPoint. Then you will be able to do what you see here in the video also there. Now, that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining. If you want to know when we do our next webinars, just go to langdock.com/events. There you will also find the recordings of our past webinars. We also will release the recording of this webinar there. So if you maybe missed the beginning or you want to rewatch a certain part, don't worry, we will also put it live there. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you in our next webinar.